We're all scared of death, but I'm somewhat of an extreme case. Death terrifies me. It's on my mind an unhealthy amount. So after years of anxiety, it's time for a new approach. Over the next few weeks, I'm getting up close to death to find out how we can come to terms with what's waiting for us all.
It's this big, huge mystery that none of us really understand.
Without mortality, I don't know what humanity would be.
This week, I'm going to hear how near-death experiences can spark a belief in the afterlife. The man I'm meeting was dragged under a train, and his near miss with death completely changed his life.
There's nothing to fear at all about death. It's not the end, it really isn't.
David Ditchfield was struggling to find work as a labourer in London, so he travelled to Huntingdon to stay with his sister. On the day of the accident, he was here, seeing off a friend. That was a bus train. Okay. Hello.
Sorry,
Hi, that's okay. So, shall we just go to the platform now?
Yeah. And a friend, Anna, she'd come up to visit me, and so I was here seeing her off.
Mm-hmm. So where was it?
Well, yeah, just pretty much just beyond this bridge here, so roughly around here.
Okay.
So we were just hanging around waiting for the train to arrive. And so I helped her on with the bags, and then, was chatting to her, gave her a hug, and then we heard the emergency buzzers going, Jumped off the train, and then she stepped forward, and I just gave her one more kiss goodbye. And I was wearing like this coat at the time, and when they closed the emergency doors, it got trapped in there. There were two rubber sort of buttons each side, sort of open and close doors, so I was just like whacking those. And then I tried banging on the glass, shouting out for help. As the train started pulling out, I just thought, this is it, I'm going to die. For the first time in my life, I was facing death. I was dragged quite a long way along the platform. As I went under, the sides of the carriage looked like they were like really high up, disappearing into the sky. I felt like I was being thrown into a machine, like into a mincer. I was just tossed around like a rag doll, and I was just thrown all over the place. And the train was still going, and it seemed like it was going on forever. Then it disappeared. All I can remember was just lying down, face down, and just the smell of like the oil, and I just kind of looked up, and there was this beautiful blue sky, and it was just such a pleasure to go from all that darkness and just see that sky. Then the paramedics arrived, and they jumped down on the track.
What injuries did you sustain?
My arm had been ripped right open, and I suffered some internal injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder issues, and then I went for an awful lot of therapy to get me back to this platform.
To me, that sounds like your worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And the kind of thing that you think, I don't know if I could actually be okay after that, even if I recovered physically.
I really wanted to sort of not let this beat me,
Yeah.
It felt like, it's really odd, when it happened, that the train, the whole incident felt like the actual train itself felt like this huge beast, And I was just kind of like a David and Goliath scenario. I thought, no, I'm not going to let this beast beat me and completely destroy my life, So I was determined not to let that happen.
As somebody who imagines stuff like this happening to them all the time in quite an unhealthy way, what I want to know is, like, was it worse than you would have anticipated something like that being, or not as bad? For
me, fear, a lot of it it's all the anticipation. Facing death was not as frightening as I thought it would, and it's made me kind of like, I don't know, feel differently about it all. Definitely.
Okay. Every year on the anniversary of his accident, David comes here to reflect. So what do you do when you come here?
I say a prayer and say thanks to the universe for saving me that day.
Before your accident, what did you think happened when you die, or just before you died?
Do you know what? I hardly thought about it. I didn't really think about death that much. But that all changed literally on the day of my accident. I had what's called a near-death experience, and I'd known nothing about them up until I had mine. But basically what happened was I Gone from the hospital, the A&E department, with all the doctors running around, to a very peaceful place, and I was there on my own. I looked down at my body to see how my wounds were, and everything had healed. My arm was completely intact. I felt like I was lying in a darkened room almost the size of this. At that point I thought I was dead. I thought, this is it, this is what happens, this is where you go to, this is the next stage. I suddenly felt this energy that was coming stronger, more powerful at my feet, so I looked up again. What I could see was like this tunnel of white light, pure white light. At that point I thought, this is like, this is creation, this is God, this is not like this kind of like guy up in the sky with a beard and what have you. This is like the energy of all creation. And then I just laid my head back and embraced it all. And at that point, I was suddenly back in the hospital. All my senses were on overdrive. I couldn't handle it. My ears, I just wanted to cover my ears, you know, and close my eyes. And it was just too much to deal with coming back. But this energy was still with me. I could feel it, and I just felt like there was like I still got an attachment to where I'd just been.
What would you say to somebody who said,
Sorry.
this isn't a real thing that happened, you didn't go to a real place, you just nearly died and so you had a hallucination?
Well, ultimately, one thing is I'm not here to preach to anybody. You know, if people want to listen to my story and take it in, and that's fine. And if they don't, that's equally fine. You know, so I want to be able to tell people that there's nothing to fear at all about death. You know, that it's not the end. It really isn't. You know, I can say that hand on heart.
You said you didn't think about death that much before. Now, looking forward to the time when you do die, how does that make you feel?
One thing I know from that incident, that you know, when my number's up, it's just I've got no control over it. So I know that I don't want to try and control that. I have no fear of death at all.
It sounds like it, but do you think that you're different from how you were before because of this near-death
Totally,
experience?
Yeah. And it was almost like that happened to sort of literally guide me forward, you know. My life is a lot more three-dimensional, I guess, now, you know, it's just than what it was then.
When David woke up in hospital, he wanted to record his near-death experience. And though he wasn't an artist, he decided to paint what he'd seen. Did you paint at all before your near-death experience?
Nothing like this at all,
really?
nothing.
So what was it? When you woke up, you just sort of had an urge to...
Yeah, I had an urge to record what had happened to me in a painting.
Do you understand why people are scared of dying?
All you know is that we're alive now, and we're walking around this planet, and then suddenly the light's just going to go off and that's it. But there's something more out there. There is more out there. There's a bigger story. There's a bigger story, and I'm still trying to learn it as well. But I feel like I was given a massive whole load of signs that I was dragged under a train, survived it, went up and saw. We shouldn't be so scared.
The thing is that you've had to go through something awful to gain this knowledge that you have. It's hard for me to take as much comfort from it as you have because I didn't go through it.
If we don't have all the answers, then how can we suddenly say, okay, well, death's frightening because that, you know, when it actually happens, that's the end. When I was in my near-death experience, all I could feel was love, and that love is waiting for us.
I'm still not sure what I think about near-death experiences, but there is something compelling about David's story. You'd think going through something as scary as he did would leave you full of fear, but for him, it had the opposite effect. And being able to take something positive from that kind of experience is good, no matter what you believe in. Next week, I'm tackling my death anxiety head on and trying to cure it with a slightly morbid meditation.
Your physical body is dying. Feel the blood pumping and feel it start to slow down a little bit.
Subscribe now so you don't miss it.